Alright, yesterday we went over a new Karnstein armlet build that you could run to give you so much ×2 resto for very little effort. And in that video, I said that tomorrow, which is today, we'd be releasing the updated Sunbracer build for Season 23 to absolutely annihilate the entire game, have infinite ×2 resto, although it's not as easy to proc and get the ×2 resto as the Karnstein build, but it's still fairly easy to get this stuff going, get the loop going. And unlike the Karnstein build, you have Sunbracers, which means you are throwing so many powerful solar lava blob spewing grenades that you just couldn't do on the Karnsteins. We know how good Sunbracers are. They didn't get a change going into this season, but the artifact mods really enhance solar builds this season. And you have a pretty decent amount of flexibility if you don't want to copy my exact fragments for this build, which I do mention and go a bit more in depth with in the actual build breakdown portion of the video. Let me start off by saying that I've used a Sunbracer build in really high-end content, Legend Avalon, Day 1 contest mode raids, and it has performed absolutely amazing, beautifully, whatever adjective you would like to use there. And this season, with the artifact mods that we have access to really enhance solar weapons and solar builds in general, it just makes the Sunbracer build that was already dominant, unkillable, insanely good, even better. Totally day 1 dungeon ready, although your access to ×2 restoration is going to take just a little bit more effort to start up and get going, but it is so easy to sustain with how overwhelmingly strong Sunbracer Touch of Flame grenades are. Now real quick, before we do hop into the breakdown, gotta let you guys know about our homies over at Instant Gaming. Their sole purpose in this world is to save you money on any games you purchase or any games DLC that you purchase, and yes, that includes the Final Shape. So whenever you decide to pre-order the Final Shape or any other game in its DLC for that matter, make sure you head over to Instant Gaming. It'll be the top link in the description, and you can save yourself a pretty decent amount of money. And of course, we always got the G Fuel link as well. Keep yourself energized and hydrated while you're gaming, kicking butt. Code Kree, 20% off at checkout. All right, let's go ahead, hop straight into the build breakdown and how you can absolutely dominate the world with lava blobs spewing solar grenades. All right, Sunbracer build breakdown updated for Season 23. Now, let me preface this by saying you have a lot of options in how you can go about actually building your subclass in particular, but I first want to touch on the artifact mods this season because they are so insane, especially for solar builds. So we're going to start off Kindling Trigger. Radiant causes solar weapons to apply Scorch to unscorched combatants. We'll happily take free access to Scorch while we're Radiant. Flint Striker, rapid solar weapon precision hits and rapid solar weapon final blows grant Radiant. Basically giving yourself the ability to get Radiant just from shooting your weapons as long as they are solar, which they are going to be solar on this build. Pretty damn good. Revitalizing Blast, causing damage with a solar ability, weakens champions and bosses for a short duration. Absolute juicer if you're playing solo or you're playing in a fire team that can't get a debuff. As a Sunbracer Warlock, yeah, you'll be applying debuff throwing those grenades at the boss, which will allow them just to do more damage. Absolutely amazing artifact mod. Raise up precision, dude. I love this thing right here. This mod is so good. While Radiant, solar precision final blows cause combatants to go boom, ignite. Yeah, we'll take that all day. Easily take that all day. If you're solo, easily put on solo operative, my boy. Also, this can be useful in the dungeon from whence you came, increases ability, damage to taken, and scorned combatants. Awesome. Now, because we do have Flint Striker, this may affect how you change your subclass. I'm just going to give you a decent skeleton core to rock with that is easily able to compete in content in which you're underpowered. The gameplay that you saw before the build breakdown and that might be playing in the background just somewhere throughout the video in the Legend Avalon exotic mission locks you to a lower power. Which I believe is either 1810 or 1815. Point is that a decent amount of the gameplay is being shown in content in which you are under leveled in. On top of that, I use this build in Day 1 Crota for both the bridge encounter, and I use this loadout for day 1 ear ute. My point being is that you can get it done even in contest mode raids. Now let's actually get to the subclass, because this is where stuff is definitely going to change person to person. First off, let's go over the most important stuff that you need. Heat rises is a must on Sunbracer builds in my opinion, as final blows while airborne increase the duration of heat rises, but it's also going to grant melee energy. And while you have heat rises activated, when you Phoenix dive, you give yourself ×2 restoration and cure. Of course, what do you use with that ×2 restoration? You obviously pair it with Ember of Empyrean to extend the effects of your ×2 restoration and your radiant that you have applied to you, which is very easy to apply this season. And for higher end content, definitely put on Touch of Flame so your solar grenades are actually chunking like they're supposed to. Remember, those lava little blobs that the Sunbrace grenades will spam out, they stack with each other. However, normal basic solar grenades do not. That is exactly why we gotta have Touch of Flame on. So yeah, we are gonna sacrifice having Icarus Dash, at least for this particular setup, but it's okay. We still get it done. I like to use Incinerator Snap for my Sunbracer build to proc the actual Sunbracer effect. I find this one to be the most consistent for it, although you could use Celestial Fire if you were just a bigger fan of this melee. Now, the most important fragments for the build, of course, the most important is Ember of Empyrean. We just talked about that. And then Ember of Searing, as defeating scorched targets grants melee energy and creates a fire sprite. Now, these next 2 fragments, you could definitely alter them depending on your play style. I have Ember of Singeing so that we can get our Phoenix Dive back whenever we scorch targets, which is even easier to do with this season's artifact mods. And since this is the bread and butter of starting our ×2 restoration loop, I figured having Singeing here to help get our class ability back quicker is definitely going to help out, and it does. It is very useful. However, you could totally change that and pair it with Ember of Mercy so that you actually gain restoration whenever you revive an ally, but mainly whenever you actually pick up a fire sprite, which you will be doing a lot through Ember of Searing. You could also maybe even go with Ember of Resolve, Solar Grenade, Final Blows, cure you. And then I do have Ember of Torches just to basically ensure that I'm always going to be radiant no matter what. And since you're going to be flinging out your melee a lot on a Sunbracer build, you might as well make sure you're always radiant every time you do so. Although you could totally not have Ember of Torches, mainly because we do have Flint Striker this season. So if you do want to change out Ember of Torches, once again, you could change it out for Ember of Mercy, or the other one that I would recommend you could change it out for would be Ember of Ashes. You apply more Scorch stacks. This can make it easier to actually get the melee kills with your Incinerator Snap and higher end content. Although Ember of Torches is still going to be very useful, making sure you're always radiant, and it can give you radiant just on demand, which can be very useful. That being said, you have a lot of solar fragments to choose from, so I wanted to let you guys know about some other alternatives if you don't want to copy my fragments exactly the way I have them. I will be honest, for my day 1 Crota build, I just swapped out Ember of Torches for Ember of Ashes just to get a little bit of extra Scorch stacks. Although all of them are going to be really good, I mainly just want to give you guys a few other options. Of course, you must have on Ember of Empyrean and you must have on Ember of Searing. If you want to change out these 2, you can change them out for either Ember of Mercy, Ember of Resolve, or Ember of Ashes. Kind of wish that our aspects allowed us to have 5 fragments, but I understand why we can't, because Solar Warlock is just so strong. Also, well, Radiance for your super. Come on now. Now that you have the main core idea of our subclass, let's go ahead and talk about weapons and weapon mods, along with armor and armor mods. Now, your weapons, they are always going to change depending on what type of encounter you are in, what type of content you are in. This is just the double special loadout I use for day 1 ear utes to try and do some pretty decent juicer damage. Although I don't expect many people to use double special that often, so you can just easily keep it simple, my boy, and rock a Sunshot. This thing is absolutely amazing this season. It's even better this season than it was last season, and it's an amazing hand cannon. 1,000,000% Recommend that you have at least some sort of solar energy weapon, whether it's a solar primary like Sunshot, and if you're doing double special, maybe something like a Cartesian could definitely be useful. I would say for your kinetic weapon, it doesn't really matter too much. Just use whatever you like, whether it's a kinetic tremor supremacy, a fusion rifle like the Riptide, or even the new fusion rifle like the Scatter Signal that I have here. We just made a video on this bad boy. It is an amazing fusion rifle. And of course, your heavy weapon is also going to change depending on the encounter you're in. Although for me personally, it's always between 2. If I don't have to worry about a boss, slap on the LMG, whatever your favorite solar LMG of choice is. Mine is the fixed odds. And then for a boss, just keep it simple, bro. Apex Predator, bait and switch reconstruction. You literally cannot go wrong with a reconstruction bait and switch Apex Predator for boss DPS. All right, now for the actual armor mods, they're not too crazy important outside of a few, such as Ashes to Assets. Highly recommend you put this on just so you can get your Well of Radiance back really quick. Maybe a heavy ammo finder, maybe a solar siphon, whatever you pick, whatever you feel like you need the most. But the most important helmet mod is easily Ashes to Assets. On the Sunbracer themselves, I highly recommend a firepower so that you can actually make orbs of power on grenade kills. Keep in mind there is now a 10-second cooldown for both firepower and heavy-handed, although you'll still be making a lot of orbs through your Sunbracer grenades. I also recommend running 2 momentum transfer armor mods, as causing damage with a grenade is going to reduce your melee cooldown. Meaning, we have 3 ways to get our ever so important charged melee back so we can start the Sunbracer loop. We have 2 momentum transfer mods, heat rises, and Ember of Searing. This will basically allow you to always have an uptime and a fully charged melee ready to go to throw more Sunbracer grenades. Your chest piece, I just put a concussive and a resist mod. For your boots, I am a huge fan of having things like Absolution, Recoup, and Invigoration. Another way to get our melee back. I'm telling you, bro, we're loaded here. And then having a different pair of boots to actually go ahead and swap to damage 4 that actually will have your surges, whether it's 2 surges, 3 surges. Point being, you run something like this to stockpile and hold your armor charges, and then right before damage starts, you can swap to your actual surge boots. So you have a full fresh set of armor charge for your surges ready to go throughout the entire damage phase, especially if nobody is running Powerful Friends or Radiant Light, or you're just playing solo content. For instance, a solo flawless dungeon run could be useful just to hold your surges. And then for your class item, really doesn't matter too much, but Powerful Attraction is really good, so you just automatically pick up all nearby orbs whenever you cast your Phoenix Dive. Has a pretty decent radius as well. And then maybe a time dilation mod for whenever you switch to your surges. Although I just have a prox ward and a special finisher here, as you got to have something in order to actually hold armor charge whenever you pick up an orb. Although you have a lot of freedom depending on when selecting your armor mods on your class item. That being said, this is my main setup for my armor mods for the build. This is just a basic damage loadout you can use during a boss encounter, or you could always bust out the LMG for a non-boss encounter. And once again, it all just depends. Overall, you do have a pretty decent amount of freedom when setting up your Sunbracer Infinite ×2 Resto build, so long as you follow the core of it with these 2 aspects, and Ember of Empyrean and Ember of Searing, and Phoenix Dive. Phoenix Dive is also a must run. All right, there we have it. That is the Season 23 Sunbracer Solar Warlock meta build. Yeah, obviously Sunbracers are still an S tier exotic for Solar Warlock, but dude, the artifact mods this season are just so ridiculous that it makes the Sunbracer build even stronger than it already was. And I really wanted to try and give you guys a solid foundation in the subclass on what you should really have on, and then give you some other options, at least fragment wise, because I know not everybody's going to want to run Ember of Torches or Ember of Singeing. So I gave you guys a few other options of fragments that you could swap out for those 2. As long as you follow the core of the build, so you're always able to get your ever so important fully charged melee ready to go and keep the ×2 resto flowing. That is why I went with Heat Rises over Icarus Dash, and I considered Ember of Searing an absolute must-run fragment. This build will absolutely be ready to help you for the day 1 dungeon, even though day 1 dungeons don't have contest mode or anything crazy like that. But it'll also help you with your solo flawless run, and any other difficult content that you may be doing this season. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on the build down below in the comments, and maybe any other ideas of builds that you guys might have in the comments that I could go ahead and try and cover. And I should be able to get around to it. Right now, the next build that I am eyeing on doing, at least for Warlock, is probably a Starfire build, just because of Revitalizing Blast. Of course, that build video is going to be for another day, but thank you so much for watching the video, you guys. Hope you enjoyed. You guys be safe, take care, consider subscribing. We'll see your beautiful faces in the next one. Remember, the One Piece is real. Adios, guys.